The music pulsed through the house, a reckless thump that drowned out the chaos in my head. I stood in the kitchen, gripping a beer bottle, watching my wife, Claire, laugh too loudly with strangers she'd never see again. Last night, in the blur of her drunken haze, something happened, something that shattered the life I thought I knew. It was supposed to be just another party. Claire loved hosting these things, our small Chicago suburb home, filled with her co-workers. Their plus ones, and enough alcohol to sink a ship. I played the dutiful husband, refilling drinks, nodding at bad jokes, and pretending I belonged in this picture-perfect life. But I didn't. Not anymore. Not after what happened in the guest room at 2 a.m. His name was Ethan, a new guy from Claire's office, quiet but sharp, with eyes that seemed to see through everyone. He'd shown up late, carrying a bottle of cheap whiskey and a smile that felt too warm for a stranger. I noticed him early in the night, leaning against the wall, watching the crowd like he was studying a painting. Something about him, maybe the way his fingers lingered on his glass, or how his gaze flicked to me when he thought I wasn't looking, set my nerves on edge. By midnight, Claire was slurring her words, her arms slung around some guy from accounting. I didn't care. I was used to her getting like this. Her laughter turning sharp, her eyes glassy. She'd crash soon, and I'd carry her to bed like always. But Ethan didn't leave when the others started to trickle out. He stayed, helping me clear empty cups, his shoulder brushing mine as we moved through the kitchen. It was innocent. At least, it started that way. "You don't seem like the party type," he said, his voice low, like he was sharing a secret. We were alone in the living room, the music still blaring. Claire passed out on the couch. I laughed, awkward, and shrugged. "It's her thing, not mine," I said, nodding toward Claire. "I just keep the peace." He stepped closer, his eyes locking onto mine. "And what's your thing, Nathan?" The question hit me like a punch. No one ever asked me that, not Claire, not my friends, not even myself. I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. Ethan's gaze didn't waver, and in that moment, I felt seen for the first time in years. Not the husband, not the guy who paid the bills and mowed the lawn, just me. I don't know how we ended up in the guest room. One minute, we were talking, his voice pulling me in like a tide. The next, the door was closed, and his hand was on my arm, his breath warm against my neck. I should have stopped it. I should have pushed him away, told him I was married, that this wasn't me. But I didn't. His touch was electric, unraveling something I'd buried so deep I'd forgotten it was there. I let it happen, his lips on mine, his hands pulling me closer, the world shrinking to just us. Claire was asleep, oblivious. In the next room, the guilt was there, sharp and heavy, but so was the want, and it burned brighter. When it was over, I couldn't look at him. I mumbled something about checking on Claire and stumbled out, my heart hammering. I thought that was a mistake, a moment of weakness I'd bury and forget. But Ethan didn't let it go. The next morning, he was still there, sitting at my kitchen table like he belonged, sipping coffee like we were something real. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft but steady, like he wasn't afraid of what we'd done. I couldn't answer. Claire was upstairs, hungover, and I was standing in my own kitchen, feeling like a stranger in my life. Ethan reached for my hand, and I pulled away, the weight of my wedding ring burning against my skin. "We need to talk about this," he said, his eyes searching mine. "You felt it too, didn't you?" I wanted to deny it, to tell him it was nothing, that it was just the alcohol and the late hour. But the truth was clawing at me, refusing to stay buried. I'd spent years pretending to love Claire the way she wanted, pretending I didn't notice the way my heart raced around certain men, pretending I could keep living this lie. Ethan saw through it all, and now he was looking at me like I was his answer. The days that followed were a blur of avoidance. I threw myself into work, stayed late at the office, anything to keep from facing him. But Ethan was relentless. He'd text me simple things, like, thinking of you, or can we talk? Each message a spark that threatened to set my carefully built world on fire. Claire didn't notice. She was too busy planning the next party, the next distraction. But I was unraveling, caught between the life I'd chosen and the one I'd never dared to want. One evening, I found myself at a bar downtown, alone, trying to drown the noise in my head. Ethan walked in, like he'd known I'd be there. He sat across from me, his presence filling the space between us. And I hated how much I wanted him to stay. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice rough. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said, leaning forward. "I know you're not happy. I know you felt something that night, same as I did. And I know you're scared as hell right now." I laughed, bitter. "You think you've got me all figured out?" "No," he said, his voice softening. "But I want to." His words hit me harder than they should have. I wanted to tell him to leave, to stop making me question everything. But I couldn't. Because he was right, I wasn't happy. And for the first time in years, someone saw it. Someone cared. The bar's dim lights cast shadows across Ethan's face, making his eyes look deeper, more dangerous. I gripped my glass, the whiskey burning my throat. But it couldn't drown out the truth in his words. I wasn't happy, not with Claire, not with the life I'd built to keep everyone else comfortable. "You don't get it," I said, my voice low, almost lost in the hum of the bar. "I'm married. I made promises. This," I gestured between us, "this can't happen." Ethan didn't flinch. Promises don't mean much when you're lying to yourself, Nathan. His words cut deep, slicing through the walls I'd spent years building. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong. But the memory of that night in the guest room flooded back, his touch, his breath, the way I'd felt alive for the first time in years. I stood abruptly, tossing cash on the table. "I need to go." He followed me outside, the Chicago night air sharp against my skin. The street was quiet, the city's pulse muted under the weight of my thoughts. Ethan grabbed my arm. Not hard, but enough to stop me. "Running won't make it go away," he said. "You can't unfeel what you felt." I yanked my arm free, my chest tight. "What do you want from me, Ethan? You want me to blow up my life? Leave my wife? For what? A fling?" He stepped closer, his voice steady but laced with something raw. "It wasn't a fling. Not for me. And I don't think it was for you either." I turned away, my breath uneven. He was right, and I hated him for it. I'd spent my whole life doing what was expected, marrying Claire, buying the house, playing the part. But Ethan was like a crack in the foundation, exposing everything I tried to ignore. I wasn't just attracted to him. I was drawn to him, like he was the missing piece of a puzzle I'd never dared to solve. The next week was torture. Claire was oblivious, planning another party, chattering about guest lists while I nodded and pretended to care. Ethan's texts kept coming, each one a reminder of what I was trying to forget. "Meet me," he'd write, "just to talk." I ignored them, but every time my phone lit up, my heart raced. Then came the night of the next party. Claire was in her element, flitting between guests, her laughter louder than the music. I was in the backyard, escaping the noise. When Ethan found me, he didn't say anything at first, just stood beside me, his shoulder brushing mine. The air was thick with the scent of summer grass and unspoken words. "You can't keep avoiding this," he said finally, his voice soft but firm. You're not just hurting yourself. You're hurting her, too. I laughed, sharp and bitter. You're preaching to me about hurting Claire. After what we did. I'm not proud of it, he said, his eyes meeting mine. But I'm not sorry either. Because it woke you up, didn't it? I wanted to hate him, to shove him away and go back to my safe, predictable life. But standing there, with the stars above and his presence beside me, I felt the truth clawing its way out. I wasn't just hiding from him, I was hiding from myself. Before I could respond, Claire's voice cut through the night, slurred and sharp. Nathan, where the hell are you? She stumbled into the backyard, a glass of wine in her hand, her eyes narrowing when she saw Ethan. What's this? You two having a little heart-to-heart? I froze, my pulse pounding. Ethan didn't move, his expression calm but unreadable. Just talking, he said, his voice steady. Claire laughed, a sound that grated against my nerves. Talking. Right. You're always so serious. Nathan, lighten up. She turned and staggered back inside, oblivious to the storm brewing in my chest. Ethan looked at me, his eyes soft but resolute. You don't have to decide tonight. But you can't keep living like this. You deserve more. He walked away, leaving me alone in the dark, the weight of his words pressing down on me. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything but face the truth. But it was too late. The crack in my foundation was growing, and I couldn't stop it. The backyard was silent now, the party's noise fading as guests left and Claire passed out on the couch again. I stood there, Ethan's words echoing in my head, you deserve more. They were simple, but they cut deeper than anything I'd ever heard. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, Claire's soft snores beside me, and stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment with Ethan. The guest room, the bar, the backyard. Each memory was a thread, pulling at the seams of my life. By morning, I was a mess of guilt and longing, my thoughts tangled in what I'd done and what I wanted. Claire didn't notice. She never did. At breakfast, she scrolled through her phone, muttering about work, while I sipped coffee and tried to act normal. But nothing felt normal anymore. Ethan had cracked open a door I'd kept locked for years, and now I couldn't stop seeing what was on the other side. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. The way Claire and I barely talked anymore. Not about anything real. The way I'd flinch when she touched me. Not because I didn't love her, but because it felt like a lie. I'd married her because it was what I was supposed to do because it was safe. Because it kept the questions at bay. But Ethan's presence was like a spotlight, exposing the truth I'd buried. I wasn't straight. I never had been. I met him again, against my better judgment. It was a coffee shop this time, a small place downtown where no one knew us. Ethan was already there, his hands wrapped around a mug, his eyes lighting up when he saw me. I hated how much that look affected me. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said, his voice warm. I shouldn't have, I muttered, sliding into the seat across from him. This is a mistake. He leaned forward, his gaze steady. Then why are you here? I didn't have an answer. Or maybe I did, but I was too scared to say it. Instead, I asked, why me? You could have anyone. Why are you doing this? Ethan's smile faded, replaced by something raw, vulnerable. Because I see you, Nathan. Not the guy you pretend to be for everyone else. The real you. And I think you see me, too. His words hit like a wave, washing away the excuses I'd been clinging to. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that I could go back to my life and forget him. But I couldn't. Because he was right, I saw him. And I wanted him. More than I'd ever wanted anything. We started meeting in secret. Coffee shops. Late-night walks. Stolen moments when Claire was at work. Each time, I told myself it was the last, that I'd end it and go back to being the husband I was supposed to be. But every time I saw Ethan, the world felt brighter, sharper, like I'd been living in black and white, and he was color. One night, we ended up at his apartment. It was small, cluttered with books and records, a stark contrast to the sterile neatness of my house. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. His hands found mine. And for the first time, I didn't pull away. It wasn't just physical, it was like he was reaching into my soul, pulling out the parts of me I'd kept hidden. I felt free, but terrified, because every moment with him made it harder to go back. Claire started to notice something was off. "You're distant," she said one night, her voice sharp. We were in the kitchen, dishes piled in the sink, the air thick with tension. "What's going on with you?" "Nothing," I lied, my heart pounding. "Just work." She didn't buy it, but she didn't push. That was the thing about Claire, she didn't want to see the cracks either. We were both pretending, holding on to a marriage that was more habit than love. But Ethan wasn't a habit. He was real, and he was breaking me apart. Every time I saw him, I felt the life I'd built slipping away, and I didn't know if I was ready to let it go. The truth has a way of catching up, no matter how fast you run. It was a Tuesday night when everything fell apart. Claire came home early from work, her face pale, her hands shaking as she held up her phone. "Who's Ethan?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. "And why is he texting you about meeting up tonight?" My stomach dropped. I'd been careful, or so I thought, deleting messages, keeping my phone locked. But I'd missed one. A simple "see you at 8" from Ethan that Claire had seen. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. The kitchen felt too small, the air too thick. "Answer me, Nathan," she said, her voice rising. "What the hell is going on?" I could have lied. I could have said he was just a friend, that it was nothing. But looking at her, seeing the pain in her eyes, I couldn't do it anymore. "I'm sorry," I whispered, the words barely audible. I've been seeing him." The silence that followed was deafening. Claire's face crumpled, and for the first time in years, I saw her not the party host, not the distracted wife, but the woman I'd vowed to love. "How long?" she asked, her voice breaking. "A few weeks," I said, my throat tight. "But it's not what you think. It's more than that." She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "More than that. You're cheating on me, Nathan. With a man." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "Did you ever love me? Or was it all a lie?" I wanted to tell her I loved her, that I'd meant every vow I made. But the truth was messier than that. I'd loved her, but not the way she deserved. Not the way I loved Ethan. "I tried," I said, my voice cracking. "I tried to be what you needed." She left that night, packing a bag and slamming the door behind her. The house was quiet, too quiet, and I sat on the couch, staring at the life I'd built, now in pieces. I called Ethan, my hands shaking as I told him what happened. He was at my door in 20 minutes, his arms around me before I could say a word. "I'm here," he said, his voice steady. "Whatever happens, I'm here." The weeks that followed were a blur of pain and clarity. Claire and I started divorce proceedings, each meeting a reminder of the life we'd failed to build together. She was angry, then sad, then resigned. I didn't blame her. I'd broken her trust, and no apology could fix that. But with Ethan, I found something new. Not just love, but truth. He didn't ask me to be anyone but myself. And for the first time, I felt like I could breathe. We moved slowly, rebuilding from the ashes of my old life. There were no more secrets, no more lies, just us, figuring it out together. One night, we sat in his apartment, his head resting on my shoulder. The world outside was chaotic, but in that moment, it was just us. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. What if I mess this up, too? Ethan lifted his head, his eyes meeting mine. You won't, because this is real, and we're in it together. I believed him. For the first time, I believed in something more than the life I'd been told to live. I'd hurt people, Claire, myself, even Ethan in those early days of denial. But I'd also found something worth fighting for. A love that didn't ask me to hide. A truth that set me free. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still questions, still doubts, still moments when the guilt would creep in. But with Ethan beside me, I knew I could face them. Because real love wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, broken and all, and choosing to build something new.